We have 11 new cases of COVID-19 in the community to report today, and all are in Auckland. That takes our total number of cases in this outbreak to 1,007. Of those total cases, I am pleased to report 549 cases have now recovered. Of our 11 new community cases today, 2 cases remain unlinked and are still being investigated further. There are also 5 new cases of COVID-19 in recent returnees in our managed isolation facilities, and details of those cases will be in our media release. I just want to take a moment to explain where we are at with the various subclusters in this outbreak. We classify subclusters as active, contained, dormant, or closed, based on the time since the last case associated with that subcluster was reported, and other factors like whether the case was a household member. That allows us to have an overall assessment of the situation and assess the risk. So active subclusters are cases which have been reported in the previous 14 days and are not household or other known contacts of previous cases. Contained subclusters have cases reported in the previous 14 days and are household or other known contacts of previous cases. Dormant subclusters are where there are no cases reported in the previous 14 days, and then closed subclusters is where there are no cases reported in the previous 28 days. So you go from dormant to being closed. We currently have 9 epidemiologically linked subclusters identified in this outbreak, of which 2 are active, 7 are contained, and 1 is dormant. We then have a further 10 epidemiologically unlinked subclusters. Of these, 2 are active, 3 are contained, and 5 are dormant. So what that tells us is that we are closing in around this outbreak and that we can be cautiously optimistic about the containment of it. I want to just touch on some information about the truck driver that was discussed yesterday. Public health officials are investigating the positive case announced yesterday in the Auckland-based truck driver. The truck driver and a member of his household have been transferred to a quarantine facility. I can confirm that he travelled in his work capacity to a number of supermarkets in Auckland, the Waikato and Bay of Plenty regions. You may have already seen that the first locations of interest related to this case are on the Ministry's website. These are in Mount Maunganui, and we are expecting further sites in the Waikato to be put online today, once confirmed. If you have been at one of those locations of interest at the relevant time, please follow the advice on the Ministry's website, as it does vary depending on the nature of the exposure at that location. We have been advised that he wore a mask and maintained social distancing while he was working. It's important to note that the supermarket the truck driver visited for his work are not listed as locations of interest, as they were delivery areas not accessible to the public. The company involved has immediately stood down staff who were in close proximity to the driver and have been assessed as being contacts following a risk assessment completed by public health officials. The company also advises their supermarkets have been operating under all COVID-19 protocols, including scanning or signing in, increased cleaning protocols, physical distancing and mask wearing. Truck drivers who come to the supermarkets are required to follow these same protocols and are physically distanced from team members who are loading or unloading goods. At no time do truck drivers enter the shop floor of stores or sites as part of their delivery or pickup routine. On testing, yesterday 7,400 people in Auckland took the opportunity to get tested, with around 1,710 suburbs taken from our 7 suburbs of interest. That brings our total this week for those suburbs to 9,200.
This morning at 9 a.m, the third round of the wage subsidy and the new resurgence support payment opened for applications. I'd like to remind businesses and sole traders that they can apply for the wage subsidy regardless of where they are based in the country, so long as they meet the eligibility criteria. As of this morning, 480,697 applications for the wage subsidy have been approved, totalling almost $2.1 billion in payments. The resurgence support payment, as you know, is aimed at supporting businesses to meet their fixed costs. As I announced on the podium last week, that payment was originally a one-off payment per outbreak, but we have agreed to make it a 3-weekly payment in recognition of the pressure that businesses are under. The first round of the resurgence support payment has so far paid out $563 million to 184,901 applicants, and this takes the total economic support paid out in this outbreak to almost $2.2 billion. As you know, we hope to see Auckland stepping down to Alert Level 3 next week, and this will mean a lift in economic activity. Based on what occurred last time we were moved from Alert Level 4 to 3 and then down to 2, 85 to 90% of economic activity is possible at Alert Level 3. To put some numbers around that, the Treasury estimates that the current scenario, with Auckland in Alert Level 4 and the rest of the country in Alert Level 2, is costing the economy about $700 million per week. But with Auckland in Alert Level 3 and the rest of the country in Alert Level 2, the cost of the economy would be around $260 million per week. As the Prime Minister indicated yesterday, if on Monday we confirm our in-principle decision for Auckland to move to Alert Level 3, we will also be considering an increase in the number of people who can gather together, including in hospitality venues around the rest of the country, and we anticipate that this would be lifted to 100 people. I know that will not solve all of the issues for the affected businesses, but I know it is welcome news for many, particularly in the hospitality industry. And to the cafe bars, owners, venues and staff there, thank you for doing the right thing and helping us through this outbreak. I know that it has been tough, but we are heading in the right direction, and we couldn't have done it without the cooperation from everyone involved. And finally, an update on the Trans-Tasman bubble pause. The initial 8-week suspension to quarantine free travel with Australia is due to end next Friday, the 24th. The Cabinet has agreed to extend this pause for a further 8 weeks, and this will be reviewed again in mid to late November. We're announcing this today so that people in Australia can take part in the MIQ room release on Monday and have the opportunity to access the first tranche of around 3,000 rooms. Flights from Australia will be in October and November. Travellers from Australia should visit the MIQ website to find out how to participate in the room release on Monday. In addition to that, a third managed red flight from Australia to New Zealand is also planned for those in emergency situations, and this follows on from the 2 red flights that returned stranded Kiwis home to New Zealand on the 5th and 15th of September. Obviously, with those flights, the costs and MIQ costs need to be covered by travellers, and they need a pre-departure test from an accredited laboratory, which is required within 72 hours of travel.